7 years ago, my friends, today, I stood on this hill with that astronomy tower behind me, and I did a YouTube that became very popular, and it was called the Great Polarizing Wealth Event, where you could have an opportunity to become the 9% or suffer like the rest, becoming the 91%. The 91%. How many of these people are the 91% and how many the 9%? We're in affluent Blackheath, Greenwich area, and it's on Greenwich Hill 7 years ago today. I am the market sniper, and I'm going to talk to you about how we've done in those last 7 years. 2015 it was when I recorded that video, just approaching 100,000 views. Now we're doing a follow-up to tell you a little bit of what's happened in that time. The amazing thing is I haven't been in Britain or this area at all in an extended period. In fact, it's the first time back, literally, since I departed many years ago. And I want to highlight a couple of things that were interesting that happened to me. So I went to an old local and now under new management to have my scrambled eggs, mushroom, usual traditional English before coming here. And having drawn cash at the airport out of my card, where I was handed exclusively only these very cold, slightly oily plastic notes. That's right, no more normal money. Now you really have plastic money. I offered 30 of the pounds for a 27 pound bill for my coffee, my scrambled eggs, and a couple of other odds and ends that I did have. And I found out that, you guessed it, he didn't want to take my cash. He didn't want to take my cash. He said, "I'd rather not have that, sir." He looked at me as if it was kind of a dubious thing that I was doing. That's right, offering to pay legal tender in oily plastic notes that were taken out of the banking machine not days earlier, put this man in a great position of vexation. He preferred a card. He wanted a card. The digitization of everything, my friends, is here. Cash is now almost looked down on, an oily relic of the past. And we sit on Greenwich Hill and we talk about the progress since 2015, when they were very happy to take cash and it wasn't plastic. Plastic's fantastic. Your Fiat is here and ready to fail, my friends. In the time since 2015, we'd already had quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and probably concluded 4 in 2014/15, may have still been going. I can tell you that the highest price at any point during that year for petrol, at its absolute peak, when oil was $115 a barrel, was £1.32. That was your highest price paid at the time in the UK, and actually most of the time it was between £1 and that 132. Today it's virtually £2. That's right, you'll be 190, and the oil price is much the same, but the difference being your inflation rate, my friends, your inflation rate, last known number 9% and climbing. In Euroland, very similar to the UK, similar exposure to natural gases following the events of Ukraine, Russia. You actually had producer price inflation. That means the manufacturers, what they pay for their stuff that they're then on selling to you, of 37.2%. 37.2%. So a little bit of extra heads up there. The producer price inflation, absolute mayhem. Why? Because the euro gone and fell from around the 117, 118 marks, which we said it would on a macro head and shoulder, to around 105s to the dollar. 106s today. So loss of currency power, which has also recently happened, you guessed it, to the pound. That's right, to the pound. That video was done pre-Brexit. I think it was the best thing Britain did by getting out of the Euroland. Their numbers will be slightly better, but not significantly so. But they would be dragged down with the death of the euro, but they're quite capable of dragging themselves down all by themselves, as are all the lepers in the leper colony. Because the truth is, friends, no matter which nation state you are, we've all been synchronized into a hyper debt money creation environment where there's been a blow off in debt creation since that 2015 video. We've not only had We had the 2018 crisis in the Shanghai Accord, but then we had the repo crisis of 19, which was very, very destructive. Saw immense amount of money being passed to the primary dealing banks. And then we went straight into COVID as a result of that, January, December, with eventual lockdowns coming in around about March of 2020. In that period, where previously QE was done at 50 billion, 100 billion, 150 billion at a time, within that one period, that was a huge flash crash event for all markets, where SMEs and everyone was closed except your oligarchical macro Walmarts, Amazons of this world that traded all the way through that and continued to make great money and market share at the expense of small business operators that were forced to close. During that period, 6 to 7 trillion was created. So let's just be clear, a single event, more than 5 times, 6 times, possibly 7 times more than all the QEs 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's what's happened since 2015. And now, runaway inflation. Who'd have thought it? You print a whole bunch of money and you create runaway inflation. Inflation is a central banker's policy. They run a policy of inflation while denying it, while stating that they are managers of inflation, that they will keep you at a certain fixed rate or range. Well, I would like to suggest that that's not exactly the case. In fact, they trace a policy of inflation. Why? Because inflation is a billionaire enrichment strategy, and it is a middle class and working class impoverished strategy. And when you're Jay Powell and you're worth 100 million plus, you're good with getting richer on owning cheap debt to buy high value assets that will appreciate in an inflationary environment. Oil wells are great to own. Silver mines and gold mines are great to own in a time like this. And guess what? They go up in value in depreciating fiat, at least, probably standing roughly still, in an environment that everybody else's debt is getting more expensive. So you are on an interest rate hiking curve that saw even the Swiss National Bank hike from minus 0.75 to minus 0.25. That's right, they haven't yet got positive in Switzerland. Why? Because their neighbors in Europe are in such garbage trouble that if they ever have a similar rate to Europe, everyone will move their money into Swiss francs instead of holding euros. That's your problem. So to discourage too much money coming into the Swiss franc to sit in bank accounts, they still have a negative interest rate. But my friends, as the debt markets are collapsing in value, the interest rates required on them are going up. We said a wealth polarizing event in 2015. And our prediction is exactly as it always was. Since then, you've had COVID, which was deeply destructive to the middle and working classes. It was deeply destructive to small business owners who they hate most. If you had a job, many of you would have kept your jobs, but some would have lost them. And any money that was printed and given to you, 10 times that was given to their special interest corporations. And of course, 2 years, lockdowns on and off, has actually seen no new investment in energies. And now, having called in 2019, the second half, and then again in quarter 4, and then reiterated on the stage at the Dollar Vigilante and on the stage in December on a crypto symposium in South Africa, we predicted a single-digit oil. That occurred, and now with that lack of investment that didn't take place for 2 years, you now have a glut of need, of demand, and insufficient supply, further exacerbated with deep globalization due to a selected war with Russia over Ukraine. Don't forget, 2014 had just happened, and the oil was at its all-time high when you were facing £1.32 because of, wait for it, Ukraine and Russia. In fact, Secretary of State at the time, Newland, a Zionist through and through, was bragging to a Polish minister how for just 8 billion of printed up dollars, they had flipped the entire of Ukraine. all that valuable soil, all that valuable energy. Since then, the Biden cartel seems to have done very well in there, the Pelosi cartel, and many other insider cartels that are shareholders and have been holding up a kleptocracy. Someone who had information that was incriminating to Biden was actually thrown out of his post. So the corruption runs deep, my friends. The corruption runs real deep. And you are now facing the Rockefeller tax, that is the price for energy, most specifically oil, but not restricted to. As the Ukraine situation has shown, natural gas has also gone up. And of course, uranium, the great unloved, is now coming back into play as people realize clean energy is going to require nuclear for an extended period before the batteries, the solar, and the wind power, God forbid wind, goodness gracious me, anything more unreliable and sketchy, I don't know, comes into play, and we actually can be self-reliant on green energy. So here's our predictions for the next 7 years. Will I make it back in 7 years? Will I still be alive? Who knows? Who knows? Lots to roll, lots to happen in this crazy world. Will we stand on Greenwich Hill again, where they discovered astronomy and spoke of the planet world and how small we are all in it? Yes, that's the pitch anyway. We will see. So our predictions are, my friends, that this is in fact, this year that you are in right now is the year that debt is allowed to die. That's right. For dramatic effect, a little bit of zoom in, zoom out. Debt has begun the trajectory that sees it die. That doesn't mean that death and final rites will be pronounced during this year, but that the major reversal is going to be both brutal and violent, and it will go until something breaks, and that doesn't need to be very far. Already we are at interest rate levels, considering the increase in debt, far more sensitive than prior to the lows. Why? Because we've added more debt, and as a result, as the interest rates go up, the point of failure goes down with it. It's a bit like being a buy the dip market in the bonds. As you buy more and more and more and more on every low in value, your liquidation line comes higher and higher, ever higher. And if you keep doubling in size, this time I'll be right, I'll go even bigger, that liquidation level comes rushing up to you. And this is a bottom that should not be bought, my friends, because it's a whole new world, he says, taking his hat off. It's a whole new world. My hairstyle is very similar to the one I was wearing 7 years ago, but I can tell you the debt environment is not. We have never been so indebted. And the price of that debt with the interest rate hikes and the inflation that is now around has never been more obvious. This is how a debt system dies. And this is how the 2015 video that you can see the pain for over here highlighted how the 99, I would probably say the 99.9% get impoverished, and the 1%, the 0.01%, if you're really lucky, the 9% survive. You've got to be part of that 9%, that 1%, or even that 0.1% by being smart. This is what we're all about. We've predicted this event, and it has moved steadily further, further and further. The politics of the US, the politics of the world, the pandemic, the totalitarianism, the Bolshevism, the deception, the propaganda has never been bigger. And now those that talk truth, and he puts the beautiful old astrology center directly above his head for true north, because this is the GMT line where you step from the east to the west meridian. Truth, my friends, has never become a greater revolutionary act than it is today, and with every day hereforth, because the misinformation, the ministries of truth are now here. And people like me are misdirect, fake news people. Despite our predictions turning rather accurate, we're an unwanted class or category. Unvaxxed truth tellers are the new enemies of state. Unvaxxed truth tellers are the new enemy of dark state, of media, of every actual element. Because for you to know What is to know the skullduggery of those that control you. As Voltaire once said, to know who your master is to know who you may not criticize. We are losing our freedom of speech in the name of offense to minors, transgenders, females, blacks, other nation states. We are losing our right and our freedoms to say anything, and I say that without meaning ill to any of those categories, subcategories that they use to divide us. They use divide and conquer techniques to crush our opposition. Do not see another category as human as your enemy. See the octopus, oligarchical corporations and state that will continue in the pursuit of absolute global power until all the greatest corruptions have played out. And this is what you are busy living, and this is the death of your debt system. And whilst it's started in this year materially, we actually called it, the only people to call it, in the depression, the Japanese, the deflation. Everyone was calling deflation in 2022, post the crushing of the SMEs. But they never saw the rebound in oil as strong as we saw it, both to the downside. The natural laws of technical analysis is, as hard as you spill to the downside, so will your momentum be when you reverse back up. No one saw the fundamentals to the other side, the lack of demand, and then the deglobalization strategies as we decide which nations are bad and who we may buy from and who we may not. Suddenly, a new moral order of division is in play, and boy, are you paying for it. You're paying for it in your carbon credits as a corporation. You're paying for it in your inflation. You're paying for it in your reduced choice of suppliers. You will pay for it in shortages of power. Here is a prediction. Power is going to be undersupplied and over-demanded, and as a result, lockdowns of light, load shedding will take place of electricity, rationing of gas, and they will divide and conquer you and say that rich middle-class man of a 4-bedroom house, preferably a white male, is stealing from the poor, because in winter you are now more likely to get COVIDs, 1984, that's right, because you don't have heating in your house, and you don't have heating because him with the big house, mean old man, is heating his house, and he can still afford to pay for energy and you can't, and he's bought all your energy. They will divide and conquer you, and they will say, we should punish that man who has taken from you. And the foolish, impoverished, weaponized, that's right, the foolish, impoverished and weaponized low end of the market will be turned on the slightly better off. And that's how they turn the working poor against the middle class and have them demand the end of the bourgeois society. This was the Bolshevik Revolution, and this is how they did it. Demonization, media, non-stop, about how I, in my nice house with 3 or 4 bedrooms, has stolen your lighting and your heater in your cold house, and that's why Granddad died of COVID in winter of 2022, winter of 2023. I have reduced your opportunity to get at a reasonable price, and as a result, we should all be rationed. It should be one rule for all, and as a result, higher taxes on the middle classes. As a result, punishment taxes on those that have the means to pay higher prices even though they don't choose to, and shortages for everybody else. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer, that's right. And in these energy environments of reduced energy, they will keep you turned against your enemy, and they will institute price fixing. They will come with price fixing in the name of doing something and supporting you, always whilst breaking the system further. You see, this is the inadvertent idiot act, and it is an act. Everybody says, but they are incompetent. No, it's an act. They know where it ends. Not all the implementers that will discuss it do, but the people that control those implements surely do. Price controls, they will scream. It's not right that Francis in his 4-bedroom house and high ceilings is allowed to heat his house, even if it's costing him £1,000 a month. And Joe Schmo can't afford, and he has a cold house, and now he's dying of a pandemic, a lab flu that they created. No, sir, it's not right. We must punish Francis. More wealth, taxes, more property taxes, more energy-based taxes, more carbon taxes. And that way the great leveling will come, my friends. The great leveling. Everyone suppressed to peasantry level through ever escalating charges, resentment, and anger. And they will send the angry social mob to your door. They will direct and weaponize the working poor who does not understand their wicked games, and drive them to your homes of great lushness. Never to the mansions in the countryside of Buckinghamshire, Rothschild Manor. Never there, where you will meet trained by the Israeli Defense Force security operatives with infrared cameras who will be keeping everyone away. Never to the islands, the runaway islands that the billionaire classes have established to sit out the great crash, the great reset that they've been planning all these years, the great victory for them all, where they hollow and suppress the masses out and turn themselves into overlord wealth kings over everyone else. They will track and chip and manifest and digitize you in every possible way, while reducing you to a tenant and a renter and a tertiary extracting object. You will own nothing, and you will rent it all on an as-needed basis, and they, my friends, will be the owner of that. That is the other half of you will own nothing. The truth of it is we will own it all for you, and you can rent it off us, and we control it, we control the terms, and you can accept or you can go without. That, friends, is the great Bolshevik revolution, the technological oligarchical revolution that we are sitting on and facing. This is the great debt destruction process that is well on its way on an interest rate. The dollar super spike is my guess. We see it technically against many currencies, only to fall later. The central bank digital token will slowly creep in and take over all, like these plastic notes that sit and are now the new Fiat Antenna. No doubt, maybe they can track them. I don't know. Who knows? They will be reeling them in soon, and you will be on a crypto wallet with a central bank digital token, and you'll be allowed to spend what you're allowed to spend, and you will be disallowed when not allowed. This is the ultimate control over your money, how you even get to use it, and who has say over how to do it. Go and look at Carstens. Meet your plastic. It doesn't even crackle like it used to. Your plastic pound money. This is it. Fake. I remember Roy Keane calling Mick McCarthy a plastic paddy, a plastic Irishman. Meet your plastic currency and everything that is incurred or inferred by that very point. I've got to put my plastic back in my wallet without wobbling and losing this. So, welcome back to 7 years later. The dystopia is accelerating. We also discussed UBI on this hill around that time and saying this is a thought that will not go away. Your pensions, my friend, were referred to in that 2000 video. Guess what they are stuffed with? They are stuffed with corporate and government debt to keep you safe in a low-risk asset. You do understand. A low-risk asset. Conservative financial principles, as conferred by the 60-40, 60% equity, 40% bonds brigade. That has been the investing meme of buy the damn dip ever since the Volcker years in the 1980s. And boy, what a meme it's been. It's the gift that keeps giving until suddenly not. You are all stuffed with bonds and debts, so properly trained to call a bottom on Bitcoin, call a bottom on the equity market. Buy, it only will go up later when the Fed pivots. What if the Fed waits a little longer before it pivots? What if the inflation is deemed so bad and so high and so vast that a greater devaluation of asset classes are required to even partially contain it? What if all those things, and in that period the greatest deflation of hyper-valued assets then occurred, and there is no asset more hyper-valued, no, not the Nasdaq tech stock market, although it's ridiculously hyper-overvalued, there is no asset more hyper-overvalued than debt. The thing that happens when they create money and dilute you, because they have created money, and every time you borrow a pound into existence, you create a debt instrument. It's the T accounting, asset and liability. And we've never, through the commercial banking system, ever created so much value, money, and thereby created so much debt. And so much debt has been created and chased such bad economic investments that have given reducing returns. We have never gone so deep and so far on a single asset class of hyper overvaluation and endless supply. And understand what I always say, extreme supply should mean very low commoditized pricing. But no, in the debt environment, you still have a negative rate on the Swiss National Bank's debt. That's right. And what have they done? They've bought equities in America, Apple shares. Yes, indeed. And those will deflate too, but maybe slightly less so. So, as every pound is borrowed into existence, and you have the biggest glut of debt ever created in the world, and now you push the cost of servicing that debt ever higher to retain or contain inflation, which is virtually like a monster, it needs killing small, it's too late. You're at double digits in true terms on nearly every nation state, and even on your state-based statistics are nearly at double digits. The British area at 9, America at 8, when in fact it's more than double that. That your costs of livings are going up so much. You've never been poorer, yet you are a two-income family, when in the olden days you could have had an average to low-income job like a store manager like Mike Maloney's dad, and a stay-at-home mum who looked after the kids, a house and a car all paid. No sir, now you have leverage, you have balloon payments, you have higher purchase, you have massive mortgages which you keep extending, and you have an ever-escalating interest rate that makes the cost of those individual debts escalate ever higher. This is the beginning of the end of the debt system. It is failing, and it will polarize. And whether they use Russia as an excuse to hack the banks at the last moment when they were due to fail on debt anyway, which could happen, by the way, any day now, any week, any month now, and I truly expect during the course of this year further progress in the devaluation and debt, when they lay blame on North Korea or Russia for hacking the financial system, you will indeed lose everything in that bank, and you will be given in return, because the deposit protection scheme, my friends, which so many say, but the deposit protection scheme, 85,000. It's like me guaranteeing you a grand piano will not kill you falling on your head. I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to give it to you, because it's very unlikely that it happens to one of you. But if there's a lot of grand pianos that are suspended in the air, and everyone in the world is running and jumping around, and the weight of grand pianos are so high that it's going to rain pianos, I would not be able to pay every single one of you for having a grand piano fall on your head. And that day is coming. That day is coming, and you will find out the true lack of worth of the great deposit protection scheme. We are prudent. There is no scheme. Government backs it and can print money to do it in an instance of one small institution maybe, and you'll all pay higher taxes, face higher costs and greater government debt. How do you do it for an entire banking system with collateralized obligations to other banks in other parts of the world? How do you do it when the entire leper colony of the economic situation is unraveling? Who pays that? It's unpayable, my friend. It'll be Shemitah time. Shemitah time indeed. The great debt reset. And that is how you kill a debt-based system for a new system. A central bank, digital currency, peace in our times, they say. A piece of token in a digital world for which you'll be allowed to make certain purchases under certain conditions, subject to a social score. That is the dystopia that friends like Elon Musk are part and parcel of bringing, along with embedded chips. That's right, he's not your friend. They create every hero that you look up to. The true heroes are those talking truth to you about the direction of this world economy and who controls it. The World Economic Forum, the greatest predictor of catastrophic events that's ever existed, has warned themselves of a great hack. Is that the final way they push and kill the banking system that is dying with derivatives so tightly wired to the interest rate environment and the debt system, with such sensitivities that just a flick, the wrong flick, will send all the dominoes toppling? I'm Francis Hunt, I'm the Market Sniper. We've been preparing for this moment and what's following since 2009. I've been investigating and discovering all about this literally since my trading career began as an investor in a mutual fund at the ripe old age of 19 years old, 1987. And I'm here to help you navigate the most traumatic events. May you be born in interesting times for the many. And you, if you take the right action and you make the right decisions, can be part of that 9%, that 1%, that 0.1. And yes, it means the opposite of everything Tony Blair says, the opposite of everything the World Economic Forum says. Get physical silver, get physical gold. Hold cash on you, your banks will betray you. It'll be legal tender and you'll be given a chance to cash it out into whatever it is they bring in later. If your banks are zeroized, how will you survive? How are you with being out of the money system that they've created for us? Are you self-reliant? Do you have access to food? Do you have access to water? Do you have access to land? Do you have access to food? Are you urbanized? Could you be pushed into pod living on your central bank digital token? Or are you self-reliant with a community of like-minded in an orchard with vegetables, fruit, water? Yes, my friends, these are the times of the prepper, the self-reliance prepper. How good are you to be off their money system when it comes? Will you take the chip? Will you take the next booster? Will you take the monkeypox vaccine? All of these things and more are questions you're going to have to face. The sooner you decide your principle, all those questions are answered. Become a man of principle and know which way you are sailing the ship. Be prepared to live and die by that principle. Take your family, your friends with you, and organize. If you don't be that man of principle, you will have lots of random questions that will keep popping up, that will require answers from you, and you will take that which is made most expedient and simple, and slowly you will be dronified into a eunuch world of chips, virtual reality, and stripped of every asset you own. You will be walking meat in the asylum of dystopia that they will be creating. On that positive note, there is a beautiful world waiting for you. Get outdoors, get sunshine, take action, and optimism and all forms of joy still exist, still can be had, and you can become a beacon of truth and light in very dark times. Remember, big characters get offered big challenges. Stand up, recognize it, and be that man, that woman, that human. I look forward to seeing you at themarketsniper.com when you decide it's time to be a man of principle